In 1989, the world of international tennis was given final, indisputable proof that a new force was here to stay. In that year, 5 out of the 8 Grand Slam titles were won by 2 players from the same country. The players, Boris Becker and Steffi Graf. The country, West Germany. Ever since international tennis championships were first held in the late 19th century, a few nations dominated both men's and women's events. Germany was not one of them. In fact, it wasn't until 1931 that a German player first appeared in a Wimbledon final. And then there were 2 of them, and they were both female.
The women's final was an all-German affair between Fräulein Alsum and Krawinkel, won by Fräulein Alsum.
It was a slower, less media-conscious time, but the sentiments remained the same.
If I knew that I had to speak today, perhaps I wouldn't have tried to win yesterday, because I'm very afraid of it. But I must say that I'm very, very happy to have won Paris and Wimbledon this year. And ever since I started to play tennis, it was my biggest ambition to win Wimbledon once.
Wimbledon has always been the title that players most want to win, and the 1930s saw another German come very close. Baron Gottfried von Cramm reached 3 successive Wimbledon finals, but lost to Fred Perry twice, and then in 1937 to Don Budge. The outbreak of war in 1939 put a stop to the Wimbledon Championships for 6 years. In 1940, a bomb dropped on the centre court, but fortunately, the damage was only superficial. The same couldn't be said of German tennis, and it was almost 30 years before Germany again produced a Wimbledon finalist. In 1967, the unseeded Wilhelm Bungert on the right here fought his way through the championships to meet the Australian John Newcombe in the final. Bungert won only 5 games in that match, and German tennis again entered the doldrums. Australia was still a major, though waning, tennis power, and the 70s were dominated by players from America, Sweden and Czechoslovakia. But in Germany, things were happening behind the scenes. By the early 80s, Bettina Bungay, Sylvia Haneke and Claudia Koda-Kilch began to appear regularly in the seedings at Wimbledon. But they still couldn't get their names onto the Wimbledon Roll of Honour. In 1984, when 17 of the surviving ladies' champions assembled on centre court to celebrate the 100th ladies' singles title, not a single one was a German. But following those champions onto centre court was a 4th round match which featured a young German girl, Steffi Graf. In a hard-fought match, Graf took the British number 10 seed, Joe Dury, to a 3rd set. But at 8-7, Dury had match point.
Advantage, Miss Dury.
So a second match point for the British number 1. That's a superb backhand. Glorious cross-court and on match point. No nerves.
He wins by 3 sets to love, 6 love, 7-6, 6-4.
With reunification likely to make Germany even stronger as a sporting nation, and the junior development program so healthy, even Becker and Graf are certain to be strongly challenged. But it was the remarkable successes of these 2 great champions that made 1989 the year when German tennis finally came of age.
Wimbledon is profiled at 11 o'clock next.
Deuce.
And Dury just can't close out what has become a classic. Back to Deuce. Well, I think the German thought that might have been wide.
Advantage, Miss Jury.
But she's accepted the call. And once again, Steffi Graf, match point down. Not quite this time. Graf goes out to a much relieved Joe Jury, but we'll be seeing a lot more of Steffi Graf on the centre court, I'm sure.
At 15, Graf was the youngest girl for almost a century to reach that stage of the championships. In her very first Wimbledon, she was already rewriting the record books. And another young German made his Wimbledon debut in 1984. Boris Becker reached the third round, but in his match against American Bill Scanlon, he twisted his ankle and had to retire. That injury put him out of tennis for almost 3 months, but it couldn't stop his meteoric rise. The following January, he played in the Young Masters tournament in Birmingham and met the Swede Stefan Edberg in the final. Becker won that title with a performance that attracted the attention of veteran BBC commentator Dan Maskell.
I couldn't help thinking here was a boy tremendously strong, 6'2", powerful, for his size, fast, a wonderful range of adventurous shots, fine serve, and the spirit of the boy impressed me so much. And I came off, and in fact, before I came off the air, I think I said something like, here's a boy, if I'm not mistaken, it won't be very long before he wins the Wimbledon.
How right he was.
Game and first set to Becker.
Only 6 months later, and Becker took the first set ever won by an unseeded finalist at Wimbledon. The most important game of the match, though, came at 1 set all, as Curran, with a break, served at 4-3.
Love 15. He's missed it. A terrible miss by Curran, but great defence by Becker.
Allowed 30.
Great athleticism by the teenager in defence, and the pressure back on Curran. Oh, yes. Beautiful disguise this time from Becker, but the stop volley wasn't good enough. 3 break-back points. Oh, yes. Becker back in the match. 1 set all, 4 games all, and Curran has lost that break of serve.
On grass, I don't often give up a break like that, and he came up with 2 big shots, and that, you know, proved that the guy's got a lot of talent, a lot of ability.
And the rest? The impossible had happened. Becker was the first unseeded player to win the title, the first German, and by a margin of 2 years, the youngest ever Wimbledon champion. The world celebrated, but the reaction back in Germany took everyone by surprise. The whole country seemed to go crazy, even Becker's hometown of Lyman.
I was talking to most of the people. I knew them for many years, and suddenly I came back from Wimbledon, and they were, you know, they were trying to touch me, you know, and trying to, you know, look at me and yell at me like happy. And I said, what's wrong? I mean, of course I won the tournament, but still I'm Boris, you know. And they, oh, Boris! It was strange.
It was such a big surprise to anybody. At that point, he didn't win any big major tournaments, and nobody really knew him at that time. And so to everyone, it was something special.
And Germany's interest in tennis was also being fostered by their other young idol. A year younger than Boris, Steffi was taking a little longer to win her first Grand Slam event. In fact, she had to wait until 1987, when she became the French Open champion. That year, she established a winning sequence of 45 matches, which was brought to an end by Martina Navratilova in the 1987 Wimbledon final, as Navratilova won a record 6th title in a row. But Graf was determined to get her name on the Wimbledon trophy, and in 1988, she again fought her way through to the final, and again met the woman who had become the undisputed centre court queen, Martina Navratilova.
Oh, that's intelligent use of the wind by Steffi.
Graf had improved her grass court game. She'd taken Navratilova's place as the world's #1, and now she was after her Wimbledon crown. But Martina had no intention of abdicating.
The perfect left-hander serve to the left court.
Using all her experience, the champion refused to give way, and at 5-6, Graf found herself serving to stay in the first set.
15-40, 2 set points to Martina. Steffi drops the set for the first time in the championships, and Martina perhaps on her way to a record 9th Wimbledon title.
Remarkably, that was also the first set Graf had dropped in 21 consecutive Grand Slam matches. And she looked like losing another as she went 2-love down in the second. But then, like all great champions, she raised her game.
That's extraordinary. What speed from Steffi. Back for the lob, up for the drop shot, and no wonder Martina can't believe it.
Champions need more than ability. They need the will to win. And one of Graf's most potent weapons is her mental strength. In that second set, she was to prove that she has what it takes to be a champion.
How to turn defence into attack. Brilliant. And what an awesome weapon her forehand is. Martina knows she can't hit anything short to it.
Graf won 6 games in a row to take that second set. After an hour and 13 minutes, she was on level terms and playing beautifully. Martina could do nothing about it and soon went 2-love down.
15-30.
Winners just continue to flow from Steffi's racket, particularly from the forehand. 2 break points to extend this run of games to 9. And it's the forehand again. No wonder Tim Gullickson, Martina's coach, looks worried. And Peter Graf, Steffi's father, encourages her. Steffi had won 9 games in a row against one of the
greatest players of all time, with some of the finest tennis ever played by a woman on the centre court. Soon the title was at her mercy.
Well, she's done it. The net cord. And Peter Graf leaps to salute his daughter. The new champion at Wimbledon at 19 takes over from the old champion.
With Becker's 2 Wimbledon wins in 1985 and 6, and now one for Steffi, things in Germany would never be the same again. One of sport's great unanswered questions is, where do champions come from? In searching for clues to explain the success of these two young champions, the similarity of their backgrounds is immediately and strikingly obvious. They even grew up within a few kilometers of each other in southwestern Germany.
I mean, we knew each other from 7, 8 years old already, and played tournaments together. We saw each other quite a lot.
As children, they practiced together occasionally, and they still do. In many ways, they are male and female versions of the same player. Their games are both based on athleticism and power. They both have enormous drive and determination, and they both owe much of their success and possibly their mental strengths to their family backgrounds. Becker's father, Karl-Heinz, was president of the local tennis club where Boris first played and trained. The support and encouragement of his family undoubtedly contributed to his confidence and will to win. His elder sister also played, and the family would travel to tournaments around the country as the young Boris climbed the junior ladder, right up to the national level. Graf's father, Peter, was also involved in tennis. He managed the local tennis club and played with his daughter from the age of 4, when he first gave her a cut-down racket. Even when Steffi began to win major titles, he still provided vital emotional support. But both Graf and Becker needed professional help to exploit their raw talent. Becker found it in a team headed by Jon Tyriak, who has guided his career since he first started playing senior tournaments.
Well, for years, and I was looking at the German tennis, and for me it was strange that probably the biggest federation in the world, they have over 2 million tennis players organized in their federation, was not able to pump out the tennis player. Now this phenomena happens to the French, to the British, to the Italians, but from time to time, though, they have some tennis players. The German always, they had good juniors, and for one reason or another, they never get a junior out.
Tyriak and coach Gunter Bosch set about turning Boris into a true champion.
With Boris, we wanted to make a fresh start. That is, through individual coaching with a manager who is an expert in tennis. That meant a new beginning, not only for Boris, but also for West German tennis.
Bosch had been the German national coach, and his ideas were adopted by the German Tennis Federation to help them discover and encourage new talent.
We have a system development program which starts in the club area, and there are the regional associations above, and then the best talents are developed by the German Federation. And now we get much more, because much more young boys and girls want to play tennis. We have an increase in '88, I believe we had an increase of 25%, boys and girls under 14. This shows how attractive tennis now for young people is.
And they have the facilities for them. In the Stuttgart area alone, which has a population of just 570,000, there are 86 tennis centers, with a total of 471 outdoor and 43 indoor courts. And the results are obvious. In 1980, just 3 German women and not a single German man played at Wimbledon. By 1989, this had grown to 10 men and 11 women. Who knows how many more players are even now emerging from the junior ranks, full of the fire necessary to emulate Graf and Becker. And Becker's desire to win the Wimbledon title again was only too obvious after he lost the 1988 final to Stefan Edberg. He got his chance the following year. But first, he had to wait for his compatriot Steffi Graf. She again found herself battling with Martina Navratilova for supremacy on the center court.
Well, what innovation. The lob off the half volley.
This time, though, it was Graf who took the first set. But Martina still viewed the title as her own and wanted it back.
a marvellous pass.
Navratilova took the second set, and the stage was set for yet another titanic struggle. And once again, the more pressure Steffi was under, the more she seemed to like it.
3-1, 30-40, a break-back chance here for Martina.
Well
played. And it's interesting now how Steffi is taking the match to Martina, who knows she had a chance, and you don't get many against Steffi these days. Trying to keep relaxed, but Steffi increasingly coming to the net and denying Martina's favourite position. It's a nervy one.
Advantage, Miss Graf.
But again, it's Steffi putting the pressure on Martina by getting to the net, and having survived that break-back point, she has a point to go. 4-1, her advantage. Oh no.
Game, Miss Graf.
Well, that's a crucial blow struck by Steffi to go 4-1 up in the final set.
Graf had responded to the pressure and stamped her authority on the match. Soon, she was serving for the championship.
Game, set, match, Miss Graf.
The perfect way to retain your title. Pavel Stosel and Peter Graf delighted, as is Steffi. A wonderful performance. She confirms her position as the world's #1.
Rain in the second week of Wimbledon meant that both of the singles finals in 1989 were played on the same day. So, as one German retained her title, another was waiting to recapture his. The men's final too was a repeat of 1988, with Becker again meeting Stefan Edberg. But this year, things were very different.
Game, Becker. Game, Becker. Game, Becker. Game, Becker.
That was the first love set in a Wimbledon final for 40 years. An astonishing performance. And in the second set, Edberg saw 3 set points slip through his fingers as they reached 6 games all.
1 point apiece then in the tiebreak. Well, Becker is coming on strong again now, taking advantage of a serve that was a little short. Becker took the invitation to swat it away. Nothing short about that Becker serve, and how well he has served throughout the championships. And to enforce the point, his 4th ace of the match. Such a potent weapon to have at your disposal. And real problems now for Edberg. He'll be thinking about those 3 set points he squandered in the last game, and Tenny Pickard, his coach there, certainly will. Now the Swede is 1-4 down in the tiebreak. Oh, and that's plumb on the line. Becker once again in full flow. Beyond Tyriak. They've changed ends. 1-5 now. Becker has hit one of those golden streaks. And Edberg has no answer. 5 set points, with 2 sets to love.
Second set, Becker, 7 games to 6.
Well, what determination by the German to come back, to survive those set points and to go 2 sets to love up.
Becker's power, athleticism and sheer will to win were too much for Edberg, and soon the German double was a mere formality as Becker served for the championship.